No, your eyes do not deceive you. I said it. No Rest for the Wicked is like Diablo and Elden Ring's love child, and I'm here for it. Now, it's only been a week, but I'm having trouble putting this game down, flaws and all. Now, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of bugs and system issues, like performance issue, no controller mapping, no item comparison option, no skill description on runes and abilities, rough cutscenes on cinematic. But hold on, don't run away. These are all totally fixable, and I believe these can, have, and will be improved. Keep in mind, No Rest for the Wicked is released but in early access on Steam, with the intention to release on the next-gen consoles post-early access phase. I mean, that is the point of this. It's a public test to find out all the dirty bugs and bad systems hiding away. But there are also a ton of really fantastic things about this game, like amazing combat, tons of loot, a beautifully crafted world and art direction, and stellar voice acting. That all helps to set itself apart from its counterparts. I do think we have ourselves a classic in the making, and if you can tell, they really want to make this game a top dog. With 4 hotfixes already within a week, a planned roadmap for its early access lifespan, including a new zone and multiplayer co-op. I'd say they're plugging away to give us the best game possible. But let's dive deeper and get into the good, the bad, and the wicked. No Rest for the Wicked is the top-down ARPG that may have you thinking you're about to play a Diablo knockoff, but you would be quite wrong. With a combat more similar to that of Elden Ring, and a random RNG-based loot system that feels like traditional Diablo games, this is really its own thing, and taking some of our favorite elements from both games, which you'll see more and more as we go down this rabbit hole. You play as a Sarum, a mythical holy warrior who ends up aiding the rundown town of Sacrament, who has found itself in the path of the Pestilence, an unholy plague that is affecting everything around him, and bringing in the worst of sorts. With Sacrament being your main hub, here you have the opportunity to build it back up by your hand, collecting materials from the surrounding areas and rescuing folk who can give you a boost in the fight against evil. With traditional RPG crafting, that includes blacksmithing, tailoring, woodworking, enchanting, alchemy, and cooking, but instead of leveling them up individually, you supply resources to Sacrament to level these stations, which become visually more extravagant and equipped with better items and services. But unlike traditional trainers like in MMOs and other RPGs, you can buy only a few patterns to craft directly from the vendors. This game is heavily based on RNG and random drops, so finding a good pattern for armor or weapons feels like finding a diamond in the wild. Which makes it a great time to talk about the world you actually play in. No Rest for the Wicked does things a little differently with their world. While you may find similarities to Souls-like or Elden Ring, that being rest points and tough combat, which we'll get here to soon enough. While death can happen often, it's not nearly as punishing as Elden Ring. For example, you don't drop your gold or experience points on death and have to go hunt them down through the same enemies. Nope. Like a lot of things based in this game, even the enemies, loot, and resources have respawn timers. And they are not based around death, but around how much time has passed in the world. It's definitely an interesting take on how the game functions as a whole. Pairing that with a cool feature to the map, which you'll notice is darkened out in areas you haven't been to in a while. This indicates that the portion of the map has been reset and new things are waiting to be looted and battled. I actually really like this a lot, because sometimes you will run into super tough enemies and then you could fall and die, and the fact that your progress won't reset for a short period of time is actually a breath of fresh air. And while this map as of now isn't massive, they do a good job of recycling zones into new experiences. As you level and progress through the game, you'll notice zones have difficulty levels indicated in the top right, as safe, moderate, or dangerous. All zones will eventually change as you level up and progress through the story, bringing in new enemies and challenges, and even bounties to hunt down extra tough mini-bosses for bonus rewards. And as I said, while the map isn't terribly big, it is well designed, and the art makes it even more fun to walk through. With plenty of secrets to discover, hidden paths, and shortcuts, you'll be looking into every nook and cranny to see what you can find. I'm a little over 30 hours into my experience, but I'm ready for a new zone to explore for sure. Now, they have announced on the early access roadmap that it looks like there's going to be a new zone coming. And in the game, you can definitely find places that look intentionally locked for now. So I have faith they'll come through with more to explore. Alright, let's talk about some of those comparisons to Diablo and Elden Ring. Let's start with combat. The combat in this game will keep you on your toes, and it feels like it belongs to the Souls-like and Elden Ring category. Thoughtful and precise actions are everything, and memorizing your opponent's moves just the same. There are plenty of strategies to take on with a ton of different weapons and items to use and choose from. Similar to Elden Ring, each weapon has its own unique traits and abilities. Plus, you have the opportunity to tweak your weapons into more of what you want with enchanting, which is where I found a lot of similarities to Diablo. Aside from the obvious top-down comparison, loot is very similar. With a ton of loot to collect, you'll find that everything is purely random, so each playthrough can be completely different in terms of your gear you'll find. And if you find a weapon you really like, you can take it to the enchanting station, which you can modify weapons to better suit your needs. Besides weapons with no stats, I don't think I've rolled or found one item exactly the same, which I loved, and it makes each piece feel unique and makes you want to hang on to it just in case. You can actually purchase a home and decorate it and all that good stuff, but I just keep storage chests in there and keep all my shit around like a hoarder.
I can't believe all of this was in one room.
You guys weren't supposed to see it.
And so, we arrive at a major flaw in this game. And from the top down, most of these problems I'm about to list can be resolved with one change, and that is the ability to respec your talent points. Now there are no classes, all the skills and abilities are kept within the weapons, similar to Elden Ring as I mentioned. The only issue is that these weapons are completely locked behind skill levels, and I mean fully. You can't see what the abilities look like, how weighty attacks feel, or even what they physically look like. I think this is something that absolutely needs changed. Take a page out of Elden Ring. Let me put the weapon on so I can see if I like it, and then I can go decide if I want to grind out some levels to spend on the corresponding attributes. I found this very frustrating, and a lot of weapons have some goofy high number requirements to use them, so unfortunately I was only able to experience a handful of different weapons. And there are a ton of weapons just hanging out in my chest, just waiting for me to try out, and it's driving me nuts. And as I mentioned earlier, some of the stat requirements can be crazy huge. I feel like there are massive gaps between when you can use weapons and even armor. I'm not sure if this was done intentionally to force you to use weapons and armor for longer and utilize the upgrade systems along the way, but I'd like a few more options in between levels to feel like I'm getting stronger. The levels go from 0, nothing in between, to 11, and then nothing in between to 21. There are no other level requirements other than those ones. And similarly with the stat requirements on the weapons, big gaps. So I don't know, maybe I'm being nitpicky, but let me know what you guys feel about this one. Alright, I feel like I've only talked about a fraction of this game, but there's too much to talk about. So let's round this one off with endgame and how everything pulls together. While the story and the voice acting feel great so far, there's not a whole bunch of story to experience as of now, and it definitely leaves us wanting to know more. But in the meantime, by the end of the available story, we find ourselves in the Crucible of Sarum, a place to test your strength and work your way through randomly selected levels to eventually get a chance to fight the final boss, the Echo Knight. And this shit is tough. I'm still struggling to beat him, but I'm only level 26 and I know the level cap is 30, so I gotta go out and grind some more. But that's pretty much all it consists of: beating this last boss, leveling up, finding new loot, and completely upgrading the town of Sacrament. The combat is super fun and addictive, but I can't help but recognize the fact that there's no respec to try out all these weapons we find. And since level cap is only level 30, you really do need to put a lot of thought into your character and what you'll want to use from the start. You won't be able to level up like crazy and get as many stat points as you want. So now you gotta make a new character to try out other weapons and skills. So a big takeaway tip, if you guys haven't played yet and plan to, think about what direction you want to go. Whether it's fast-paced dex, heavy swinging and chunky strength, a magic user with intellect, or a faith user which just seems to be a hodgepodge of stuff. I have a ton of notes from my playthrough, so if I didn't answer any questions you guys might have, pop them in the comments and see if I can help. As always, happy gaming, and I'll see you guys in the next one.